Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Tyson Fury is set to face Otto Wallin in September according to multiple media reports. The Athletic was first to report the matchup, with BoxingScene.com then confirming that it will be September 14 at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. So this will be Tyson Fury's second fight of his co-promotional deal with ESPN and Top Rank. And I guess for a lot of people, they'll be like, Otto Wallin, is this really the best opponent for Tyson Fury? Is this going to help him build towards a rematch with Deontay Wilder in early 2020? And I think we can maybe make an argument that it doesn't do that so much, but also other questions around why Otto Wallin, why haven't they gone with an American opponent? And we can speculate on that. But I want to sort of just set the table on who Otto Wallin is in this video. And just, is he another Tom Schwarz? Because I think the answer is a little bit yes and a little bit no. But we'll crack into that and then on to some thoughts in general about Tyson Fury and obviously his role in the heavyweight division right now, because is he doing enough to really build to that rematch with Wilder? So we'll crack into it. So Otto Wallin, I'm sure for many people, they know the name, but they don't necessarily know the fighter and what he's been doing more recently in his career. Probably a guy for some fans that's on the sort of periphery of their mind in terms of the heavyweight division. But that's because he is a fringe contender. He's not a fully minted contender. He hasn't really gone through all the steps to sort of be a bona fide sort of top 10 or top 20 guy. I think arguably he's maybe top 30, but I can't really push him up any higher than that based on his activity, but also the resume, which we'll get to. So he is 20-0, 6'5.5", 78-inch reach, and he is a southpaw. So you might be asking yourself, why is Tyson Fury facing a southpaw when Deontay Wilder is not a southpaw? And that's a good question. I'm not sure that anyone but the matchmakers can really answer that question. And some of this with Wallin becoming the opponent, it might have been they've just been working their way down the list in terms of the names. I did see on BoxingScene.com's Twitter, Keith Idec, his Twitter, that he said Charles Martin turned down the fight. Because you might remember, they originally said they wanted someone who was big and also top 5. So on that basis, Otto Wallin, he actually does fit the criteria. But then that criteria sort of shifted to they wanted someone who was big, but they wanted an American opponent. And we were hearing through multiple media reports that ESPN really wanted an American opponent. So that, ended up being a small pool of names. Jarrell Miller, who's currently on a drug ban. Trevor Bryan, who's the WBA interim champion, who's been inactive and really is an unproven commodity. He would have definitely been Tom Schwarz 2.0. And also Charles Martin. He sort of came into the conversation in the last couple of weeks after his recent win over Daniel Martz. And I think that was more out of, there was a small pool. They must have been working their way through some of the names and coming up sort of empty. And Trevor Bryan, his name had definitely been bandied around even by Tyson Fury himself. He'd name dropped Trevor Bryan. So maybe money and, sort of that sort of contractual side of things has actually worked against Trevor Bryan. Maybe some of these guys were just asking for too much. Whereas Wallin is looking for an opportunity. 20-0, he's looking to make his way in the heavyweight division. He signed with Dimitri Salita, the American-based promoter, about 8 months ago. He wanted to campaign in the United States. He'd been fighting exclusively in Europe. He was actually the European Union title holder, and he was the mandatory for Ajit Kabayel, who holds the EBU. So that was going to be sort of a unification of sorts of European belts. But Wallin decided, no, I want to make my way and make my career in the United States. He drops his EU title, drops his mandatory status, signs on with Salita, and really it has not gone so well since he's come to America. And the reason why is, he had his first fight. This was in April 2019 against Nick Kisner, ended early in cuts, the first or second round. Second round, I think it was. That fight never really got going. And then he had another fight scheduled just for a few weeks ago in July. That was going to be on the undercard of Jermaine Franklin in the Jerry Forrest fight. He was going to be facing former faded cruiserweight BJ Flores. And yeah, that one got pulled at the last minute because Flores could not pass his medicals. So Wallin had gone through the whole camp, everything, training for that fight, and cancelled at literally almost the last minute. It was actually only an hour away from the actual fight. So he has not had a great time in the United States since joining Dimitri Salita, and it's sort of not Salita's fault so much, but actually I've got to say the opponents, the matchmaking, it's not great. Nick Kisner for his first fight, he's a part-time fighter, journeyman. I mean, you can see here on screen a very stark height difference, and Kisner not necessarily a guy that Wallin should have been facing with about 20 fights on his record. It really was a bit of a waste of time, but I think for some people, they're like, okay, he hasn't been in the ring since April 2018. This is a bit of a gimme to sort of get his career in the United States kick-started. But then they, after that fight fell through, they matched him with Flores, which it was just like, well, actually, that's really bad in terms of the matchmaking. It's kind of pitiful. Should be looking to aim better than a guy in Flores who had been retired for some time. Trevor Bryan actually retired BJ Flores, what was it, a year ago now, and they were digging up Flores' corpse for Wallin to face. So effectively, he really hasn't been in a proper fight since April 2018, and that was against Adrian Granat, his fellow countryman, a fellow prospect at the time. That was kind of, I think for a lot of fans, a bit of a 50-50 sort of fight. Didn't really know who was going to win because Wallin didn't really have much on his record. Neither did Adrian Granat, to be fair. He got a unanimous decision win there, definitely the best win on Wallin's career to that point, and it still is. But effectively since then, besides the round or so that he got against Nick Kisner before it ended in cuts and was ruled a no contest, he's been completely inactive. So not exactly the best preparation to be facing Tyson Fury, is it? You only had, a round in the past year and 4 or 5 months, and then you're going to be stepping into the ring in September against arguably the top heavyweight in the world, or at least, the top 2. So, yeah, I kind of think in terms of, is this another cherry pick for Tyson Fury? Is this another Tom Schwartz? Well, it's a little bit yes and it's a little bit no, because I don't think the inactivity is going to be helping Wallin, who really hasn't been involved in a proper fight. He has not stepped up to anywhere near a Tyson Fury. He's only a fringe contender. He's not a fully minted contender because he hasn't gone through all those steps. He's a fringe contender at best, a top 30 guy at best at this point in his career. I can't put him any higher because he hasn't got anything on his resume to justify putting him up there. But he is in the WBA's top 5. He was moved into 4th spot in the latest update of the WBA rankings. And his name, actually, I said, just going to my Twitter here, when he moved into the top 5, he moved into 5th spot at the start of July. I did throw out, could he be a name for Tyson Fury's next opponent? And because he did meet the criteria laid out by Frank Warren, which was being top 5 and being 6'5.5". But then ultimately the criteria seemed to move on. Tyson Fury started talking about American opponents, and we were hearing they wanted an American. Frank Warren was saying they wanted an American. But ultimately that hasn't worked out for whatever reason, probably money, and they've gone for Otto Wallin. So, I mean, I think in terms of what they initially said, a top 5 guy, they will be riding that into the ground with Otto Wallin being inside the WBA's top 5. You could best believe, like they were for Tom Schwartz, his number 2 spot in the WBO. They will be saying Otto Wallin, top 5 fighter within the WBA, and they will just be really riding that into the ground, as I mentioned. But just on, is he Tom Schwartz 2.0? Yes and no. I mean, he's more proven, I believe, than Tom Schwartz because he had a semi-decent win on his record in Adrian Granat. He is actually a decent boxer. He moves well. He's clearly got some good skills. But on the other hand, just like Schwartz, he's somewhat unproven. He really hasn't stepped up to the level that you would think he would need to be having a fight like this. This is a massive leap in class for Otto Wallin. Maybe not as much of a leap as Tom Schwartz, who clearly had a much more padded record than Otto Wallin, but it's not like Otto Wallin's got a deep resume on here. After you take off Adrian Granat, you've got a sort of a who's who of some of the journeymen within the division, like Beato Costa Jr. Also, you have Rafael Zambano, also known as Rafael Zambano Love. So it's not like you can really point to anything and go, this has really prepared Otto Wallin for Tyson Fury. And for Fury's part, this is a curious fight because obviously He's looking to take on Deontay Wilder in 2020, and this is either going to be the fight before, or at least two fights before. Given this is going to be in September by the look of it, they may actually look to have another fight for Tyson Fury at the end of the year. Fury certainly has said he wanted to fight 3 times in 2019, so if it's September, maybe they could squeeze one in December. But arguably, this does nothing at all for Tyson Fury. But also, Otto Wallin is a southpaw. You know, it kind of reeks of they want to get him in the ring, they want to keep him active, and maybe some of that is being forced by Fury himself. But is the caliber of opponent really up to par? I like Otto Wallin, and if you followed this channel, I actually have done quite a bit over Otto Wallin in the past year or so in terms of keeping tabs on his career. But in terms of facing Tyson Fury, yeah, I don't really give him a hope at all. This will be a fight where Tyson Fury is really going to rely on his height and his reach, his boxing skills. He will just outbox another boxer, a smaller version of himself. Otto Wallin is a good boxer, but he's not at Tyson Fury's level, or he hasn't shown that he has proven to be at that level. And the big, better boxer is always going to beat the smaller, good boxer. So I think the result will not be in doubt. Tyson Fury may even fancy a stoppage, but if I was to sort of pick this in terms of Wallin being a really good mover, it could end up degenerating into some sort of, snooze fest type of fight where it's a real tactical match. So we'll have to see, how that sort of pans out. But is Fury picking this sort of opponent, another foreign opponent for an American fight? Is he going to be generating enough interest and buzz, to get people on board for a pay-per-view against Deontay Wilder? Arguably, he should be facing more known quantities, some guys with a bit more hype and buzz behind them, because, as I said, Wilden's been basically inactive for the past 18 months or so, or best part of 18 months. I don't see how this is, again, like the Tom Schwartz situation, relying on ESPN just to really sell Tyson Fury, because Otto Wallin doesn't really have anything on his resume, or hasn't done anything that you can really sort of work with to the extent that you can promote it. I mean, he's got the top 5 WBA ranking, but apart from that, it's a bit thin. And I'm sure for Wallin himself, he will know that he's going to get a pretty decent payday here. So, it's all upside for him. It's upside for his promoter, Dimitri Salita. He gets his guy into a big fight for a big money fight, because we heard Tom Schwartz got something like $1 million, somewhere around there. So if Wallin gets something similar, well, good for him. But in terms of Fury, his side of the bargain to try and build up a fight with Deontay Wilder, the rematch, I'm just not sure he's really doing enough. Is this sort of fight against an unknown quantity that there's no demand for? Does that really bring eyeballs to a Tyson Fury fight? And if this does devolve into a fight where it's not that interesting, it ends up being a sort of tactical match with their technical skills on full display. That's probably not going to bring people in either. Yeah, so it's a curious opponent for a number of reasons, and you have Wilder off rematching Luis Ortiz, a guy regarded as a top 10 opponent, and then Fury sort of pulling out of nowhere, because on BoxRec, for example, Wallin is 48th in the world. I think maybe he's, in terms of his pedigree and class, you could probably say he's more top 30, top 40. I think he's a little bit better than 48th in the world. But, obviously he's been inactive, and that doesn't help his cause in terms of, getting points and obviously getting rankings, because he's the WBA one. You can probably say he's a little bit lucky to keep it, because effectively he has been inactive. What do you make of this fight? I'm a little bit perplexed that it's being made. It kind of goes against they want an American fighter, but it does meet the original criteria. Big and someone who's in the top 5. And obviously, top 5 is a very loose sort of, you can go by a sanctioning body. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.